Hi, and welcome back to Hey, Have You Read This Book? This episode is about the book Death by Prescription, written by Terence Young. This true story is about a grieving father's battle with the multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical industry. In March 2000, 15-year-old Vanessa Young was a happy, healthy teenager. Her only problem was throwing up after meals. Her doctor prescribed Prepulsid. She seemed to be doing fine, then one day she suddenly collapsed and died in hospital from cardiac arrest soon after she was admitted. Vanessa's parents were not told how dangerous Prepulsid was when it was prescribed for their daughter. Looking online, Vanessa's father Terence found that there had been 80 deaths in the US caused by adverse reactions to Prepulsid. Terence was determined to find out what was responsible for Vanessa's death and expose the truth to stop more people from dying. After Prepulsid was taken off the market in the US because of all the deaths it was causing, Terence was dismayed that Johnson & Johnson were still going to continue to sell Prepulsid in other countries, including Canada. The company cared more about the expected annual sales of $250 million worth of Prepulsid than the hundreds of people who would die from taking it. Terence decided to sue Johnson & Johnson. His lawyer thought it would be best to find more people who had suffered from taking Prepulsid so they could file a class action rather than have multiple trials. Terence would also tell his story for a film for television. He wanted to tell people that Health Canada and Big Pharma were not acting in the interests of the people by allowing Prepulsid to be used, despite knowing the risks. Many other prescription drugs, including Duragesic, have also caused cardiac arrest. The top drug companies have annual sales revenues more than the gross national products of over 100 countries in the world. Some pharmaceutical CEOs have salaries of over $40 million. Most big pharmaceutical companies spend more on marketing and administration than R&D. Because of all the advertising, people want a pill for every ailment. The pharmaceutical companies set prices for their drugs as high as they can get away with. The original purpose of medicine, to heal the sick, is not the drug company's purpose. In fact, they do not care that millions of people are harmed by taking their drugs, so long as they are making millions. In his research, Terence found some disturbing practices carried out by pharmaceutical companies. For instance, they buy insurance against huge settlements in case they are sued for causing death. Also, the markups on prescription drugs are hundreds of %. They buy the powder from companies they own at a huge markup so that they can show that manufacturing costs are high and justify charging patients hundreds of dollars a month for prescriptions. The companies pay doctors up to $20,000 per patient to go on a clinical trial for a drug. Patients are not usually aware that they are even taking part in a trial. Drug reps focus on doctors who write a lot of prescriptions. The reps provide lots of free samples and take the doctors out to dinner. Only a small percentage of adverse reactions to drugs are reported because doctors are afraid of being sued. In the US and Canada, the fourth leading cause of death is adverse reaction to drugs. Since 1960, 41 drugs have been taken off the market. 12 prescription drugs were pulled off the US market in 4 years, from 1997, for killing or injuring patients. Vioxx and Celebrex, prescribed for arthritis, were pulled off the market for causing over 100,000 heart attacks. By 2001, Merck faced over $20 billion in lawsuits for Vioxx. Paxil, a blockbuster antidepressant drug, even prescribed to children, causes severe adverse effects, including self-harm and suicide, when the dosage is changed. In many cases, when someone had taken a gun to school, the shooter was on or withdrawing from an antidepressant. People on antidepressants have committed homicide, suicide, robbery, and arson. Accutane is another drug which the use of has resulted in depression and suicide. It was hard for Vanessa's family to find out about so many other unnecessary deaths from drugs while grieving for Vanessa. In September 2000, Terence and other families of drug victims filed a class action against Johnson & Johnson. Prepulsed had been on the Canadian market for 10 years. A large portion of Prepulsed was prescribed for illnesses that was not meant for. Doctors prescribed it freely for all kinds of sickness because the doctors got their education from unethical drug reps. Johnson & Johnson withheld safety information about Prepulsed because it would harm sales. In North America, there is one drug rep for every 7 doctors. But drug reps are not hired for their understanding of pharmacology, but for their sales skills. Prepulsed is only one of 26 different brand names worldwide for cisapride, so people in other parts of the world who read about Prepulsed deaths may not realize that they could be on the same drug. Other drugs which have caused hundreds of deaths are Neurontin, an anticonvulsant, and Saldane, an antihistamine. As drugs go off patent after 20 years, the drug company brings out a new drug onto the market to replace the one whose patent is running out. But the new drug usually does not work any better than the old one. The old drug is nearly always safer than the new one. Drug companies spend $1 billion a year marketing to doctors. Doctors attend workshops for continuing medical education while they are on paid, expensive holidays. Some doctors are paid cash for recommending a new drug at conferences or for putting their names on research papers that they didn't write. Drug reps visit medical schools, hospitals, and doctors' offices to pitch their drugs. Many drug reps leave their jobs because they come to realize that what they do is unethical. This story is a tragedy that should never have happened, but sadly it will be repeated over and over again due to the callousness of pharmaceutical companies and their concern about making profits over all else. We all need to be aware of the shocking practices of the multi-billion-dollar Big Pharma. To find out the outcome of Terence's battle with the pharmaceutical industry and more about how Big Pharma operates, you should read this book. Thanks for watching.